The bet was made on a Tuesday, over a cup of artisanal espresso in the doctor's lounge. 500 says she's out by Friday, Dr. Julian Thorne announced, leaning back in his leather chair. He was 33 years old, possessed a jawline that could cut glass, and wore a tailored lab coat that cost more than most nurses made in a month. He was the chief resident of trauma at Mercy Point Medical Center in Chicago, a man who treated medicine like a high-speed sport and patients like pit stops. Friday, Dr. Kira Lowry, a second-year resident desperate for Thorne's approval, giggled nervously. That's generous, Julian. Have you seen her move? She pushes the med cart like she's walking through molasses. Exactly. Thorne checked his reflection in his dark smartwatch. Elena Vance is a relic, a dinosaur. HR hired her to meet some diversity quota for the elderly, I assume. She's 54. She smells like mothballs, and she questions my orders with that silent, blank stare. It's unnerving. I don't want a grandmother in my trauma bay. I want speed. Through the cracked door, Elena Vance heard every word. She stood by the linen closet, her hands steady as she folded a stack of warm blankets. She was 54, true. Her hair was a steel gray mane pulled back into a severe, functional knot. Her scrubs were clean but unfashionable, a size too loose to hide the scars that mapped her torso like a jagged atlas. She didn't storm in. She didn't report them to HR. She simply finished stacking the blankets, her face an unreadable mask of calm. To the staff of Mercy Point, Elena was the tortoise, slow, methodical, and painfully silent. They assumed her hesitation was senility. They didn't know that when you have spent 2 decades holding intestines inside a body while the helicopter takes fire, you learn that slow is smooth, and smooth is fast. Later that afternoon, the friction came to a head. Vance! Thorne barked across the busy ER floor. I asked for the epinephrine push 2 minutes ago. Why are you checking the label? Do you need reading glasses? Elena didn't look up. The dosage in the system was flagged for a pediatric patient. Dr. Thorne. This is a 200-pound male. I was verifying the concentration. Thorne stormed over, snatching the vial from her hand. I don't pay you to think, Vance. I pay you to push liquids through tubes. If I wanted a second opinion, I'd ask a doctor. If you delay my workflow one more time, I will personally escort you to the exit. Understood, doctor, Elena said. Her voice was rasping, low, and devoid of fear. It was the voice of someone who had heard far worse insults from men holding AK-47s. God, she's useless. Thorne muttered to Lowry as he walked away. Just wait. One real crisis, one code black, and she'll crumble. I'll have her badge on my desk before the weekend. He didn't know it yet, but the crisis was already inbound. It started with the rain, a torrential Chicago downpour that turned the sky the color of a bruised plum. Then came the phone call that froze the central nursing station. The red phone, the bat phone. The charge nurse picked it up, her face draining of color. She slammed the receiver down and hit the panic button. The alarm wasn't the usual rhythmic beep of a cardiac arrest. It was the code Omega siren, a sound reserved for mass casualty events involving federal assets. Listen up, Thorne shouted, adrenaline flooding his system. This was his stage. We have an inbound chopper. 5 minutes out. High-value military transport diverted from O'Hare due to weather. Multiple gunshot wounds. Blast trauma. I want trauma bays 1 and 2 prepped now. The ER exploded into controlled chaos. Nurses sprinted. Techs ripped open sterile packs. Thorne stood in the center, conducting the symphony, feeling like a god. He spotted Elena standing by the crash cart in Bay 1, methodically arranging the airway kit. No, no, no. Thorne marched over, grabbing her arm. Not you. Get out. Elena looked at his hand on her arm, then up at his eyes. I am trauma certified, doctor. I am assigned to Bay 1. I don't care if you're the Surgeon General, Thorne sneered. This is a Tier 1 operator coming in. This is the Navy SEALs or Delta, Vance. High stakes. I need speed. I need agility. I don't need you tripping over the ventilator cord because your hip hurts. Go manage the waiting room. Hand out tissues to crying mothers. That's your speed. Doctor, you will need an extra set of hands. Get out. Thorne pointed to the double doors. Or you're fired right now. Elena held his gaze for a second too long. In that second, the air pressure in the room seemed to drop. Then she stepped back. I will be outside if you need me. I won't. Thorne turned his back. 3 minutes later, the double doors blew open. The sound of the helicopter rotors was deafening, even through the walls. A team of frantic paramedics and 2 distinct military operators in plainclothes wheeled a stretcher in. The man on the stretcher was a giant. Even pale from blood loss, Captain Marcus Breaker Graves looked like a statue of Ares toppled from its pedestal. His chest was a mess of combat gauze and blood. He was gasping, fighting the restraints, his eyes wild with hypoxia. Talk to me, Thorne yelled, snapping gloves on. Male 34. Multiple GSWs to the chest and upper neck. The flight medic screamed. BP is 80/50 and tanking. Saturation is 82%. We can't stabilize the airway. Move him on my count. 1, 2, 3. They heaved the massive soldier onto the trauma bed. Graves thrashed, his hand gripping the rail with enough force to bend the metal. He was drowning in his own body. He's combative. Lowry, push 20 of etomidate and 100 of sucks. We need to intubate immediately, Thorne commanded. Look at that neck wound. It's a bleeder. Clamp it. The team swarmed. Monitors screamed warnings. Beep, 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 beep. Saturation dropping to 75%. Lowry cried out. Dr. Thorne, I can't get a view. There's too much blood in the airway. Suction. Give me the video laryngoscope. Thorne was sweating now. He jammed the blade into the soldier's mouth. Come on, come on. From the doorway a shadow watched. Elena had not gone to the waiting room. She stood just inside the scrub line, her eyes scanning the patient not as a series of numbers, but as a battlefield map. She saw what Thorne missed. Thorne was fixated on the blood spurting from the neck. He was obsessed with the airway, but Elena saw the soldier's chest. The right side was heaving desperately. The left side was still. His trachea wasn't just bloody. It was shifted violently to the right, pushed by an invisible pocket of pressure. Tension pneumothorax. Dr. Thorne. Elena's voice cut through the noise. She stepped into the light. He has a tension pneumothorax. Left side. You need to decompress immediately. Thorne whipped his head around. Security. I thought I told you to leave. Look at the tracheal deviation. Elena didn't back down. She walked closer, ignoring the glare of the chief resident. You are trying to intubate a man whose lungs are being crushed. The tube won't help if the heart can't pump. Needle. Now. You are a janitor in scrubs. Thorne roared, the veins in his neck bulging. Get away from my patient. I am the doctor here. It is just swelling from the blast. If you touch him, I will have you arrested for assault. Sat dropping to 60%. Heart rate is bradycardic. Lowry screamed. He's coding, Julian. He's going into arrest. Intubate. Push the tube. Thorne panicked. He was losing him. The god in white was failing. The soldier, Captain Graves, arched his back. His eyes rolled back. The monitor flatlined. A long, singular tone filled the room. Beep. Start compressions. Thorne yelled. No, Elena said. It happened in a blur. Elena Vance, the 54-year-old woman with the bad knee, moved with the explosive violence of a striking cobra. She didn't run. She flowed. She shoulder-checked Dr. Thorne, sending the 200-pound man stumbling back into a tray of instruments. What the? Thorne scrambled for balance. Elena didn't look at him. She grabbed a 14-gauge angiocath needle from the open tray. She didn't hesitate. She didn't measure with a ruler. Her muscle memory took over, a memory forged in the dusty backs of Black Hawks over Kandahar and Mogadishu. She ripped the gown open, found the second intercostal space, midclavicular line on the left side. Thwack. She drove the needle deep into the soldier's chest. Hiss. The sound was audible over the alarms. It sounded like a semi-truck engaging its air brakes. A massive rush of trapped air escaped the chest cavity. Thorne lunged at her. Get off him! But before he could grab her, the monitor changed its tune. Beep, beep, beep. The line spiked. The heart, no longer crushed by the pressurized air, began to beat. Oxygen saturation shot up. 60, 75, 88, 95. Captain Graves gasped. It was a ragged, desperate intake of breath, but it was life. His eyes snapped open. He stopped thrashing. He looked up at the ceiling, then at the doctor trying to intubate him, and finally, his gaze locked on the gray-haired woman whose hand was still stabilizing the needle in his chest. The room went silent. Elena looked down at the soldier. Her face softened just for a fraction of a second. Breathe, Captain. I've got you. You're back in the world. Graves blinked. The drugs were clouding his mind, but he knew that voice. Not the specific voice, but the tone. The tone of a heater. The tone of safety amidst chaos. He reached up with a bloodied hand. He didn't grab the doctor. He grabbed Elena's scrub top. Doc! He rasped. Nurse! Elena corrected him softly. Just a nurse. Thorne recovered his balance. His face was a mask of pure, humiliated rage. He smoothed his coat, his ego bruised far worse than his body. Security! Thorne shrieked, his voice cracking. Remove this woman immediately. She assaulted a physician. She performed an unauthorized invasive procedure. She nearly killed this man. 2 burly security guards rushed in. Don't touch her, Graves tried to say, but the sedative was kicking in. His hand slipped from Elena's grasp. Elena didn't fight. She raised her hands. The patient is stable, doctor. You can intubate now. Watch the neck. Get her out of my sight. Thorne spat. And Vance? You're done. You are fired. I will see to it that you never wipe a bedpan in this state again. Get out. Elena nodded once to the unconscious soldier, turned, and allowed security to march her out like a criminal. 2 hours later, the rain had turned into a relentless sleet. Elena sat in the administrative office, a glass-walled fishbowl that overlooked the atrium. Across from her sat Mr. Sterling, the hospital administrator, a man who cared more about liability insurance than human life, and Dr. Julian Thorne. Thorne had showered and changed into a fresh, crisp suit. He looked every bit the victim. Elena was still in her scrubs, a smear of Captain Graves' blood drying on her sleeve. This is a clear-cut case of gross misconduct, Thorne was saying, tapping a gold pen on the mahogany table. She physically attacked a chief resident. She practiced medicine without a license. It's a miracle the patient survived her cowboy antics. I saved his life, Elena said quietly. She looked out the window at the gray city. He was dead. You were treating the distraction. I treated the killer. Excuse me? Thorne laughed. A cold, sharp sound. You think because you got lucky with a needle stab you know better than me? I went to Hopkins, Vance. Where did you go? Night school. I know what a tension pneumothorax looks like, Elena said. And I know what a doctor paralyzed by ego looks like. That's enough, Mr. Sterling cut in, sliding a paper across the desk. Ms. Vance, Dr. Thorne is one of our most decorated residents. His father is a major donor. We cannot have rogue nurses attacking staff. Your employment is terminated effectively immediately. We will be reporting this to the nursing board. You'll likely lose your license. Elena looked at the paper. Termination of contract. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She had been fired upon by snipers in the Hindu Kush. A piece of paper from a bureaucrat didn't scare her. Fine, she whispered. She stood up, her bad knee popping in the silence. She took her badge off and placed it on the table. One thing, Julian, she said, using his first name for the first time, felt like a slap. Dr. Thorne to you. When you go check on Captain Graves? Elena leaned in, her eyes hard as flint. Are you going to tell him you saved him? Are you going to steal that valor, boy? Thorne's face flushed red. Get out. Elena walked out. She went to her locker, packed her small cardboard box. a stethoscope she bought with her own money, a photo of her old unit, face down, and a cracked mug. She walked through the lobby. The younger nurses whispered as she passed. "Did you hear? She went crazy. Attacked Thorne. Senile." Elena walked out the automatic doors into the freezing rain. She didn't have an umbrella. She walked to the bus stop at the edge of the hospital campus, sat on the metal bench, and let the cold soak into her bones. "It's over," she thought. "The ghost is finally dead." She was just an old woman now. An unemployed old woman waiting for the number 42 bus. Inside the recovery ICU, the atmosphere was very different. Captain Graves was awake. He was groggy, but the special operations physiology burns through anesthesia fast. He was propped up, staring at Dr. Thorne, who was standing at the foot of the bed with a clipboard. "You had a close call, Captain." Thorne put on his best bedside smile. "There were some complications in the trauma bay, but my team managed to stabilize your lung. You're going to be fine." "The woman," Graves rumbled. His voice was like gravel in a blender. "Where is she?" "Who?" Thorne feigned ignorance. "Oh, the nurse? Don't worry about her. She was confused. We had to remove her for your safety. She's been let go." Graves' eyes narrowed. He had been interrogated by experts. He knew a liar when he saw one. "She put the needle in. I saw her. She didn't look confused. She looked like she owned the damn room. She broke protocol, Captain. Now, if you'll just sign these." The doors to the ICU didn't just open. They were flung wide. 2 military police officers in full tactical gear stepped in, scanning the room. Behind them walked a man who made the hospital staff shrink against the walls. General Harlan Wolfe, for stars, chairman of the Joint Chiefs. He walked with a cane, but he moved with the momentum of a freight train. He was followed by a colonel carrying a black briefcase and a squad of stone-faced soldiers. Thorne's eyes went wide. He smoothed his tie, a sycophantic smile pasting itself onto his face. "General Wolfe, what an honor. I'm Dr. Thorne, the attending physician. I'm happy to report that Captain Graves is." General Wolfe walked past Thorne as if he were a piece of furniture. He went straight to the bedside. "Breaker," the general said softly. "You look like hell, son." "Feel like it, sir," Graves grunted. "But I'm breathing." "So I hear." Wolfe turned slowly. The warmth vanished from his face. He looked at Thorne, and the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. "Who is the attending in charge?" "I am." Thorne stepped forward, puffing his chest. "I managed the resuscitation." "You did?" Wolfe asked. "Because my field report says he had a tension pneumo. My medics say he was dead on arrival unless someone decompressed him within 60 seconds. You moved that fast, doctor." "It was a team effort," Thorne lied smoothly. "I directed the procedure. We had some interference from a rogue staff member, but I neutralized the threat." "Interference?" Wolfe repeated the word, tasting it like spoiled milk. He snapped his fingers. The colonel opened the briefcase and handed the general a tablet. "Doctor, do you know what this is?" Wolfe held up the tablet. It was playing the security footage from Trauma Bay 1. "I had my cyber warfare division pull your hospital's logs 10 minutes ago." Thorne went pale. "I see a woman identifying a fatal condition." Wolfe narrated the video, his voice booming. "I see you ignoring her. I see you watching a man suffocate while you play with a flashlight." And then, Wolfe watched the screen, a small smile touching his lips. "I see a textbook needle decompression performed with a level of speed and precision I haven't seen since the siege of Fallujah." Wolfe lowered the tablet. He stepped into Thorne's personal space. "You fired her?" She assaulted me." Thorne stammered, sweating profusely now. "She's just a geriatric nurse. She has shaky hands. She had no right." "Shaky hands." Wolfe laughed. It was a terrifying sound. "Colonel, read the file." The colonel opened a red folder. Subject: Elena Echo Vance, Retired Chief Warrant Officer 5, U.S. Army Special Operations Command. Lead Trauma Specialist for Delta Force, 1998 to 2018. Deployments: Panama, Bosnia, Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Somalia. Awards: Distinguished Service Cross, 2 Silver Stars, for Purple Hearts. The room went deathly silent. The nurses at the station stopped typing. Thorne's jaw hit the floor. She didn't work in a clinic, doctor, the general continued, his voice rising. She performed open-heart surgery in the back of a Chinook helicopter while taking RPG fire. She is known in the community as the Valkyrie, because she decides who lives and who dies. And she has saved more American lives than this entire hospital combined. Wolf poked a finger into Thorne's chest. You fired a war hero for being better at your job than you are. You insulted a legend. And you almost killed my captain to protect your fragile little ego. I didn't know, Thorne whispered. Ignorance is not a defense. Wolf turned to the colonel. Where is she? Perimeter security says she just left the building, sir. Heading for the bus stop on 4th Street. Get the convoy, Wolf barked. We are not letting the Valkyrie take the bus. Elena sat on the bench, shivering. The rain was mixing with tears she refused to let fall. She watched the bus turn the corner, its headlights cutting through the gloom. This is it, she thought. End of the line. Suddenly, the bus slammed on its brakes. Elena looked up. 2 massive black SUVs had pulled across the intersection, blocking the bus. Blue and red lights flashed in the grille. Behind them, a Humvee roared up the curb. What is this? The person next to her whispered. Is it a raid? Elena stood up, clutching her box. She thought they were coming to arrest her. Thorne had actually pressed charges. The door of the lead SUV opened. General Harlan Wolf stepped out into the rain. He didn't use an umbrella. He marched straight toward the bus stop, flanked by 4 soldiers. He stopped in front of Elena. He looked at her wet scrubs, her tired face, the cardboard box. Hello, Echo, the general said softly. Elena's lip trembled. General, I messed up. I hit a doctor. I broke protocol. You saved a ranger, Wolf corrected her. He reached out and took the cardboard box from her hands. He handed it to the colonel like it was the nuclear football. Sir, you don't have to. I am not letting a legend rot in the rain. Wolf extended his hand. Come with me, Elena. We have unfinished business. I'm fired, sir. I'm nobody. You are Lieutenant Colonel Elena Vance to me, Wolf said loud enough for the bus passengers to hear. And we are going back in there. Elena took his hand. As she stood, she straightened her back. The pain in her knee seemed to vanish. The slump of the janitor disappeared, replaced by the posture of an officer. They drove back to the hospital entrance. But they didn't sneak in. Sirens, Wolf ordered. I want them to know we're coming. The convoy shrieked up to the main entrance. The automatic doors slid open. General Wolf and Elena Vance walked in side by side. Behind them, 6 soldiers in full dress uniform fell into step. The lobby fell silent. Mr. Sterling and Dr. Thorne were standing by the reception desk, looking terrified. General, please. Mr. Sterling hurried forward, sweating. There has been a misunderstanding. We can fix this. We can offer Ms. Vance her job back. Maybe a raise. She doesn't want her job back, Wolf said, stopping in the center of the atrium. He looked at the gathered crowd, doctors, nurses, patients. Dr. Thorne, Wolf called out. Thorne stepped forward, looking like a child caught stealing candy. General, I have spoken to the State Medical Board, Wolf said, his voice echoing off the glass ceiling. And I have spoken to your father. He was very interested to learn why his son lied about a critical incident. He has pulled your funding. And the board has suspended your license pending an investigation into negligence and falsifying records. You can't do that, Thorne shrieked. I am the chief resident. Security. Wolf nodded to the same guards who had escorted Elena out. Escort this civilian off the premises. The guards hesitated, looked at the general, then at the deflated doctor. They grabbed Thorne by the arms. Get your hands off me. She's just a nurse. She's nobody. Thorne screamed as he was dragged toward the revolving doors, kicking and thrashing. The silence returned. Ms. Vance, Mr. Sterling stammered. We would be honored to have you back. Head nurse? Director of nursing. Elena looked around the lobby. She saw the young residents looking at her with awe. She saw the nurses who had mocked her now looking down in shame. I don't want to be a director, Elena said, her voice clear and strong. I want to teach. Your doctors know books, but they don't know people. They don't know humility. I want to run the trauma training program. Every resident goes through me before they touch a patient. Done, Sterling said instantly. Anything. Good, General Wolf grunted. Now, one last thing. The elevator dinged. The doors opened. A nurse pushed a wheelchair out, but the man in it held up a hand. Stop! Captain Graves, bandaged and pale, forced himself to stand. He gripped the four-pole, his legs shaking, sweat beading on his forehead. Captain, sit down. Elena started to move toward him. Stay put. Echo. Graves barked. He stood tall, fighting the agony in his ribs. He looked across the lobby at the gray-haired woman in the dirty scrubs. Slowly, sharply, Captain Graves raised his right hand to his brow. He held the salute. General Wolf turned and saluted. The 6 soldiers behind them saluted. For a heartbeat, there was silence. Then, a slow clap started from the balcony. It was Dr. Lowry. Then the nurses joined in. Then the patients. Within seconds, the lobby was a thunderous roar of applause, washing over Elena Vance, cleansing the years of invisibility. Elena didn't wipe the tears away this time. She snapped her heels together, ignored the pain in her knee, and returned the salute. The tortoise was gone. The Valkyrie had returned home.